So hello again. This is the fourth lecture I'm recording, and it's the lecture of the infratemporal fossa. So what's the infratemporal fossa? Let's think about it. There is temporal, you have a temporal bone, and infra is below. So it's the area around lower than the temporal area. So infratemporal. Where is this? We need to look at the boundaries. We need to understand what this region is and where is it. Let me see. I'll show you something here. So at the top of the roof, you've got the inferior surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid. Remember the sphenoid, the wings? There, here. That's the superior part. So the inferior surface of the greater wing. The inferior part is an imaginary line from the mandible. Here, not the lower put. Sorry, here, around here. So this is the infratemporal fossa, and from the mandible you have an imaginary line. Anteriorly is the infratemporal surface of the maxilla, right? So think about the maxilla. So here, maxilla, infratemporal. This is the anterior part. This is the greater wing, right? Superior part. Posteriorly is the styloid process. Where is the styloid process? Not clear here. There's somewhere here. Here we are. Yeah, styloid process. Styloid process to the maxilla. A line from the mandible, but at the top is the greater wing, the surface of the greater wing. Medially is the lateral surface of the pterygoid plate. Lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. There's two plates. There's the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. That's okay. And lateral is the ramus of the mandible. Yeah. So that's lateral. That's medial, superior, and then inferior is the imaginary line, and then anterior and posterior. As you see, infratemporal fossa is under the temporal fossa. And the temporal fossa is the area under the temporal fascia. So there are connections, as it is with these areas. We learn them because there are connections and they can spread infections from one area to the other. So you can see that there are teeth here, and from the teeth you can get infection going into those spaces. So the infratemporal fossa, you can go to the inferior orbital fissure with the orbit. There's a pterygomaxillary fissure, and it goes to pterygopalatine fossa, and we've got this in a separate lecture, the pterygopalatine fossa. And there's a gap to the zygomatic arch and the temporal fossa, right? There's a gap here, and it can go into the temporal fossa. Here. If it goes to the pterygopalatine fossa, there's also the sphenopalatine foramen, and it can go into the nasal cavity. So from the infratemporal, the pterygopalatine fossa to here, to the sphenopalatine foramen, to the nasal cavity. Here. So we need to know where is this, the surfaces, the boundaries, etc. Now let me move this. Yeah, okay, here we are. The greater wing, that's the superior part, that's the anterior part, and this is the fissure. And from there it goes to the pterygopalatine fossa. This is the lateral pterygoid plate and the lateral surface of it. And there's also the medial pterygoid plate, but we're not talking about that. Foramen ovale and spinosum. So what's in this fossa? Very simple. It's the two pterygoid muscles, lateral pterygoid, medial pterygoid, and the tendons of the temporalis muscle. Remember, we've got the pterygoid muscle here and here, right? The medial surface and the lateral surface. And also, we've got the tendons, which come from the temporalis, and we come into this area. So you remember, the tendons of the temporalis come in before they insert onto the ramus of the mandible, they will be going through the infratemporal fossa. Some of the structures we see here, the muscles here, that's the lateral pterygoid. The medial pterygoid is about here. It's opposite the masseter, and you've got structures here. So what's in there as well? There is the maxillary artery, and it comes from the external carotid. See? There's the carotid, and then there's the maxillary artery going into the space. And it's an important artery. We'll discuss the maxillary artery in details in a different lecture. In addition to that, we've got the mandibular nerve, which is the third branch from the trigeminal nerve, and it comes from the foramen ovale. We've discussed that before. There's also the posterior superior alveolar nerve, which comes from the maxillary nerve of the trigeminal nerve as well. And posterior superior alveolar nerve, posterior superior alveolar nerve. Posterior superior alveolar nerve, where is the diagram for that? Let me think, show you. Posterior behind, superior alveolar nerve. So it supplies this area, the gums and teeth of this area. Then there's also the otic ganglion, and it gives the parasympathetic signal of secretion to the parotid gland. So there is the otic gland within this region. It must be somewhere there. Otic gland, ganglion. And then there is also the chorda tympani coming from the facial nerve that connects to the lingual nerve and goes to its pathway. But it's in this area still as a chorda tympani. Yeah, here we are. Here we are. Chorda tympani before it goes to the lingual nerve. There are a few ganglions in the area, and we need to know these ganglions, about 4 of them. So communications, as I said, superiorly goes to the temporal fossa, medially to the zygomatic arch, and to the medial cranial fossa via vale and spinosum. So you've got these foramina here. So infections in this area, think infection from here, travels here, goes here, and can go into the brain. Rare, but does happen. And then we've got inferiorly with the space lateral to the pharynx. So if you go down, and it goes to the space around the pharynx, lateral to the pharynx. And that's important because that's the area that is related to breathing. And I've had that slide before. Have a look at it, all the connections. And this is another diagram. Let me move this here. Like a box, there's the medial wall, there's the anterior wall, posterior wall, lateral wall. Sorry. You've got the foramina, ovale and spinosum, inferior orbital fissure, and there is the pterygomaxillary fissure as well. Think about this box here. The medial, anterior, superior. Right, so this was the lecture, getting it through it in a hurry. We've done it live in the class, so enjoy.